All right. Well, hello and welcome to the first of two Elliott School of International Affairs online current student panels. My name is Josh Fulton, and I am the Assistant Director of Graduate Admissions here at the Elliott School, and I will act as the moderator of this session tonight. So before I introduced our panelists, I wanted to quickly thank you all so much for tuning in today and bearing with us as we move all of our admitted student events to virtual content as we navigate through this global pandemic. We want to make sure that we are keeping everyone safe and hope that you all are staying healthy and that your quarantines so far have been both productive and as much fun as they possibly can be. So now I want to quickly cover a couple talking points of how this session will run and instructions to our attendees. So if you attended either our alumni panel last week or online admitted student day this past Tuesday, they will sound very similar. So first and foremost, please make sure that your microphones are muted at all times. We want to make sure that you can hear only myself and our panelists as clearly as possible with no background noises or interruptions. I have already set up the session to mute you when you enter the WebEx session. However, please double check that the microphone button either next to your name in the participant list or on the bottom horizontal toolbar where you are seeing my video feed is colored red with a dash through the microphone, meaning that you are muted. Secondly, can you please also make sure that your webcams are also off? This feature is also located on the bottom horizontal toolbar below my video feed and should be colored red with a dash across the camera icon. The only webcams that should be on are mine and our 6 student panelists. It's not that we don't want to see your bright shining faces, it's just that we want to make sure that the only individuals you are seeing are our panelists when they are answering your questions. When you do have a question that you would like to address to our panelists, please type them in the chat box feature located in the lower right-hand corner of your WebEx window. If you do not see a chat box feature, you can open it up by going to the horizontal toolbar once again located on the bottom of your screen. And there should be a chat bubble icon which will open and close the chat box feature. I will look at the questions that you type in and ask them to our panelists directly in the order in which they were received. When you do have a question that you'd like to ask, please feel free to address them to everyone in the chat box. So if that another admitted student has a similar question, they can see that it has already been asked. Also, please feel free to address questions generally to all panelists or to a specific panelist. If it is to a specific panelist tonight, please let me know who you would like it specifically addressed to so that I can make sure that I'm asking that person specifically. I'm also recording this live session as well. So if you would like to view this session again, please feel free to email us at esiagrad@gwu.edu. I will have one of my colleagues type that email in the chat box feature as well, just in case you weren't able to jot that down. And we can send you the downloadable and streaming links a little bit after today. And I'll also make sure that these recorded sessions are uploaded into our admitted student website and also into our weekly admitted student newsletter that I send out every Monday. The last item I want to cover is in terms of timing. We will conduct this panel this evening right up until 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I will announce a notification to our panelists when it is 5 minutes till the hour and provide our panelists one final question to answer. If there are still any outstanding questions that we did not get to during the session, please email them to us at, once again, esiagrad@gwu.edu, and we will help either address your questions or put you in contact with one of our panelists to help answer any other questions that you have. And the only instructions that I have for our panelists tonight is, since there are 6 total of y'all participating, if we receive more general questions that many of y'all could answer, in the essence of time and trying to get through as many questions as possible, let's plan to have no more than 3 students respond to each question asked. All right, I believe that should cover all of the basics for how this session will run this evening. So without further ado, I will introduce our current student panelists. by telling you their names and their respective programs that they're in. And then I will allow each of them to briefly introduce themselves a little bit further. While our panelists are being introduced, please feel free to begin typing in your questions in the chat box feature if you have some right off the bat that you would like to be addressed. So this evening we have, let's start off with Alvin Young, who is a second-year international affairs student. So Alvin, if you could introduce yourself a bit further with a little bit more about yourself, where you work, intern, and or volunteer, and also one of your favorite things about the Elliott School, be it your favorite Elliott School class, professor, or maybe a student organization you're part of. Feel free to begin introducing yourself whenever you like.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me on the panel, Joshua. As Joshua mentioned, my name is Alvin Young, originally from Jamaica, New York. I'm a master's candidate in international affairs, and this is my final here at the Elliott School. Currently, I work at CFR in the Africa Policy Studies program. If I could think of my favorite aspect of Elliott School, I guess would be my courses on Africa policy, largely because these are taught by scholar practitioners, and I'm really able to apply things that I do during the day within the classroom with my classmates and the professors.
Great, thank you so much. Our next student is Christiana Haynes, who's a second-year Middle East Studies student. So Christiana, same question in terms of introducing yourself, where you work, volunteer, or intern, and your favorite aspect of the Elliott School.
Hey y'all, good evening. Like Josh said, my name is Christiana. Yes, I am a Middle East Studies master's candidate, and I am in my final semester here at the Elliott School. Thank God, it's coming to an end. I think my favorite, I'll start off with my favorite thing from Elliott School and then go into the work stuff. I think, first of all, it's I think my favorite class that I had was definitely on U.S. foreign policy in the Gulf, which is where I'm from, not originally, but I spent 12 years of my life in the Gulf. So Middle East Studies was something that was near and dear to my heart, and of course the Gulf is great. And it was taught by former Ambassador Skip Ganeem. And he is a wonderful guy. He is also a fellow at the Arab Gulf States Institute. So really, I think what's great about the Elliott School is that the professors there, of course, some of them are purely academics, but then some of them are also practitioners as well. So that's a great sort of balance of having people who are in the academic world and then also who have been outside of that, and so get back and forth that sort of experience, which I think is very beneficial. And then I had the opportunity to work, I'm not working this semester, but I had the opportunity to work at the Middle East Policy Council in my first semester. And then I also worked at the Rafiq Hariri Center at the Atlantic Council this past semester. So yeah.
Great, thank you so much, Christiana. Our next student representative is Elijah Patton, who is a second-year Asian Studies student. So Elijah, if you'd like to introduce yourself as well.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. So like Josh said, I'm Eli. I'm in my third semester. I started last spring. The first year, I focused really hard on my academics. I did all my core work, all my theme, and currently I'm doing all my professionals. So the only thing I have left is my electives and my capstone. One of my favorite parts has been my student organization. I'm in the Organization of Asian Studies. We hold a lot of events. I've met, some of my favorite academics also happen to live in DC. So I've got, face-to-face contact with a lot of people that way. So I'd say that's probably been my favorite part so far.
Great, thank you. Up next, we have Gwen Mazzata, who is a second-year International Science and Technology Policy Studies student.
Hi everyone, like Josh said, my name is Gwen Mazzata. I'm originally from Pittsburgh. I'm an undergrad in commercial space operations at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. So my focus or my specialization in the International Science and Technology Policy program is space policy. Currently, I work full-time as a contractor to the Federal Aviation Administration in their Office of NextGen. That's kind of the office that is tasked with modernizing the airspace system in the US. And I support the commercial space portfolio, which is focused on integrating space vehicle operations into the national airspace system a bit better. Last year, I also worked as the student assistant for the Space Policy Institute at the university and was an intern at Bright Space and Technology part-time. One of the things I've really liked about the program thus far is kind of the different types of classes I've been able to take. Focusing on space policy is kind of specific, but even within that program, we've had classes like US space policy, space law, space and national security, human health in space, and non-proliferation strategies for artificial intelligence was a personal favorite of mine. So just kind of the array of classes you can take as an ISTP student and as a space policy student has been a real interest of mine. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you, Gwen. Up next, we have Matthew Schaefer, who is a second-year security policy studies student.
Thank you, Josh. Being introduced, my name is Matthew Schaefer. I am a second-year SBS student here at the Elliott School, where I'm getting my concentration in transnational security issues, which it kind of falls very well into the global pandemic being a transnational security issue. I currently work as a defense contractor at Booz Allen Hamilton. But I am aligned working with their Army's modeling simulations office, helping bring the Army into the 21st century as being a more digital engineered Army instead of being a more industrialized Army. Current favorite class, I would say, has been my cyber policy classes. It's one of the most interesting actions behind everything. Just seeing how cyber has played a huge role into not just national security issues, but transnational security issues around the world. Regarding student orgs, I actually was a member of the Graduate Student Forum, which I imagined you will hear a lot more as you come into the Elliott School starting next year. Additionally, I also serve as the communications chair for the SBS Student Speaker Series, where we bring different speakers to the Elliott School to talk about what's happening in the national security realm. But kind of looking at my experience at the Elliott School, my favorite thing about it has just been the opportunities to not just meet some of the professionals that work in amazing fields, but actually getting to learn from them as I go. I've had professors from the Department of Defense, the intelligence community, and the State Department all teach me amazing things. And coming to the Elliott School, you will learn a lot of the same things and a lot more than what you can actually imagine.
All right, thank you, Matthew. And last but not least is Yesenia Yepes, who is a second-year Latin American and Hemispheric Studies degree student.
Hello. First off, I apologize for my internet connection. It is dying. But I'm a second year at the Latin American Hemispheric Studies program. I did undergrad at GW as well, doing international affairs. During my time at GW, I've interned at the Mexican Embassy, and currently I am a NAP fellow for GW, working on migrants in Tucson and Yuma, Arizona, which is where I'm from. So yeah, migration and development is my key, and security is my key since I'm from the border.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Yesenia, and to the rest of our panelists. I see that a ton of questions have started rolling in, so I'll go ahead and get started. So first and foremost, our first question from Wisdom is, could any of you speak to the difficulty of managing a job while at the Elliott School?
Yeah, I can definitely speak on that. So I'm what some people refer to as the "oh God, why would you do that" person, because I work both full-time and go to school full-time here at the Elliott School. And it's surprisingly easy to do it, but it kind of depends on how you look at it. If you are taking classes that require a lot of studying time, where you're going to be either at home or in the library, really focusing on your studies, and it's probably better to maybe look at the time that you want to work while compared to the time that you're actually wanting to study. But from my own personal experience, it's been really easy. It's been fantastic, and I've actually learned a lot of amazing time management skills because of that. And I am actually really grateful for the fact that I've been able to do both work and school at the same time.
Yeah, I'll jump in as well. I agree with everything that was just said. You just have to be kind of intentional about allocating your time. It definitely is challenging, especially when you are working 9 to 5 or part-time hours, and then all of our classes are at night. So you have to, anytime that you have on the weekend or in between the days that you're off, just being intentional about blocking that out to get your work done. I know for myself, I'm obsessed with Google Calendar, so I have codes of red and yellow or green of when I need to be at, when I need readings or when I have my papers done. Just I schedule dates for my due dates right as soon as I get the syllabus in the beginning of the semester, just so I know exactly what I have to get done in advance.
I can also jump in a bit on this topic. Both years while I've been in the program, I've worked full time and gone to school full time as well. It is challenging sometimes for the time management piece. Like Matthew was saying, if it's almost easy in a way because you don't have any extra time to do other things, you know that you have to go to work and go to school. At the same time, the program that I'm in, the space policy program, is a small program, and there's students who are interested in the same topic and have some of the same interests. And there's a lot of events in DC, especially related to our program. So sometimes it does come with the sacrifice of knowing that I won't be able to attend those events. So to me, one of the downsides of making that decision to work and go to school at the same time is knowing that you can't do some of the social things that maybe you would have liked to do otherwise, at least for me.
Great, thank you all. Our next question is from Katie, who asks about student life for graduate students at the Elliott School. She wants to know, are there clubs and organizations to be a part of? And do you find it difficult to make connections with fellow students, considering most students also work?
I can jump in on that one unless someone else wants to take it. But so at least for me, all my friends are basically in the same club as I am. It was so LATAM is basically a Latin American group of grad students, which a lot of us happen to be in the Latin American program. And honestly, it's those kind of the interacting in that outside group plus in your own cohort, depending on the size of your cohort, and mine's pretty small, you do get really, really knit close really quickly. And you also get to meet other groups. Something that we had recently was a global night, or at least not recently, but the last one I remember was a global night, and we invited a lot of students from the Asian Studies program, and it was a good time to mingle and meet people outside of our own general bubble. Yeah, I think you just need to look at it, and usually your cohort or your director can point you in the right direction of which ones would be in your interest or in your field.
I'd also like to comment on that. I agree with all of that as well. I think what comes to mind directly is a great one that encompasses probably everything for Elliott School is the Young Professionals in Foreign Policy sort of group. It's not directly related to GW, but it's a community that is international, and it has great benefits, sort of anything from job opportunities to meeting other people from different sort of realms. So I think that's a great one that comes to mind. I'm part of that specifically. Now in regards to sort of cohorts and whatnot, and getting to know other people while they're working, I haven't had any difficulty with that. I think the first semester is difficult because everyone is, you're coming in, you want to do well, and you get into your classes, you're not necessarily going to talk to people as much, but as time goes on, as you progress, especially as you're with your cohort, and if you're in a certain specialty, then you're going to see a lot of faces all the time. And I agree exactly what you're saying. It's just really close knit really quickly in that regard. So I wouldn't, it depends on the program as well. For Middle East Studies, we're only 14 people. So that means everything that we do that's in regards to our program, we end up going and having happy hour afterwards or something like that. So it kind of gets folded into your sort of daily life with class. So, and I haven't had any issues with students that are working full time, they usually do come and do those things, every once in a while. Not always, but not as much as those that are not working, but they do get in there, so you can make connections with them. So I wouldn't worry about it.
I guess I'll jump in since there hasn't been a third yet. I agree with the first two people entirely. Thank you. I would also say that something just to give some stats. I'm Asian Studies. There's maybe 30 of us. Maybe half of them work. So even still, every night of the week after class, some people are doing something, and a lot of our events happen during the day right before class, so people can get out of work early or because they're going to class anyway or skip dinner or something, and they come to those events too. So there are plenty of opportunities, even if people's busy.
All right, thank y'all. So since we're talking about jobs and working while being a student at the Elliott School, when looking for a job while at the Elliott School, did you start before moving to DC or once you were already here? And was being in DC an asset to your job search?
Again. So I didn't go straight into my field just because since I've been at GW for almost 7 years now and I worked as a student, I realized that something that'd be great for you guys to take advantage of is that we're actually, as of this summer, getting 100% tuition remission. It used to be 90%. And so my job is actually at the university working for one of the deans. And I highly recommend that you guys, consider that because, after my master's, I'm not going to have any debt. Now, while you're working up to that, even if your job is not related to it, you can always take part in other projects. And that's why I personally am doing my NAP fellowship, because that's adding to my resume, and the work relations I'm having at GW are building up that, that path to make on and move on to my actual field. So, don't feel too bad if you don't go way into your field. Just got to keep in mind what matters to you and how you can take advantage of any situation that you get put in.
Kind of bouncing off what Yesenia said, but I can attest to not going into the field, working in the field that I wanted to be when I first came to the Elliott School and coming to Washington, D.C. itself. Originally, when I came in, I actually started as a campaign analytics research assistant. So I was dealing with campaigns which had nothing to do with security policy. So it takes time to actually build up to where you want to get and where you want to be, but don't feel discouraged that once when you get to DC and this is actually the thing that you'll always hear is that you will get more no's than yeses when you start out, and that's just because they want you to work for what you want, and it's probably the best experience, like the best learning experience that you can get out of it is it'll help direct you towards where you want to go and what you want to do and what you want to say. This is where I am 5 years from now.
So I have a few years of work experience before coming into GW. So there wasn't like a huge, I don't want to say need to jump into my field, but I would recommend take this time to plug the Career Services Center. Before, I've always wanted to work at CFR, and I started my application last semester in the fall. And really what I did, I went to the Career Services Center, met with one of the career coaches who was actually a CFR member as well. And we worked on my application and worked on a strategy of reaching out to people on our behalf to make sure that my application was being considered in the pipeline. So you have a lot of resources here at GW. I wouldn't worry about if you have to start beforehand or while you're here. As long as you reach out to people here and at the services center, someone will be there to help.
I'd like to say something about the job, getting before you moving to DC or not. So I was out of university for many years and then decided to get my master's degree. And so I was trying for a long time to get a job in DC. I was not living in DC, but I was trying to get a job here. And since, if you know that you're going to be coming to DC and, you're going to be going to GW or whatnot, I would just make that clear in your cover letter or whatnot. It does help, I would say, in my experience, to be already living in DC. But if you know you're going to be coming here, that's something you need to put up front that, hey, I will be here. So that makes you a little bit more favorable. You don't have to worry about, bringing someone out when you know they're already going to be here. So I think that makes you stand out a little bit more.
So in a similar vein, Gwen, this next question is actually a little bit more pertaining to you. Could you speak a little bit more about the internship opportunities within the International Science and Technology Policy Program?
Sure. The internship that I did while at the program during the first year was actually obtained, I guess you could say, through a connection I had at the university. One of the former alumni of the program sent forward kind of a job posting for the internship. And to my knowledge, that's how many students within the program obtain internships or jobs. The alumni network, especially for ISTP and for space policy, is pretty close knit. So oftentimes we'll receive job postings or internship postings for related internships and jobs, and those get circulated through the program just among our own mailing list before they're sent out into a larger group. In addition, current students now often share opportunities with each other, especially if a student has worked an internship during one semester and thinks another student might be interested in that internship the following semester. I usually recommend them for that. So I think finding internships and jobs through the ISTP program and through the Space Policy Institute is actually a good route to go, and it's pretty helpful for a lot of us.
Thank you, Gwen. So I'm not sure if we have any student parents on the panel tonight, but we have an admitted student who is asking about resources on campus for single students with dependent children, such as childcare networks. So I'm not sure if you all have any experience with that, or maybe know somebody who does.
So I can actually hop on this one very quickly. Even though I am not a parent, and for that person that's coming as a single parent getting their master's, I commend you tremendously. That is such a huge feat to do, and it's probably one of the things I will say I'm more afraid to juggle both than having to juggle a full-time job and full-time work or full-time school. But I know a lot of people that are at the Elliott School that are parents and are new parents, and they're actually able to get these resources through GW's actual campus, but where usually it's going through the resources center at up in the Marvin Center, where they're actually able to help you with some of those. They have links on the GW website that can help as well. And then there's also early child development care programs here at GW as well. I haven't been able to utilize them, but I know other people that do go to the school actually do that.
Great, thank you, Matthew. And if you do have any other questions, feel free to connect with us in the graduate admissions office, and we can definitely do some digging for you as well in terms of providing you to the right resources to look into for any opportunities and resources that GW provides. So our next question is in terms of capstone. So I know that capstone gets a lot of really great questions. So would you suggest taking the first capstone class this fall or fall of the second year? So could you all explain
Fall of the second year,
capstone?
definitely.
Definitely
Fall of
the
the second year. You're gonna be so drained.
I think it depends on, I think it depends also on the program as well that you're in. I know for Middle East Studies, anyone chime in if it's the same way, but we have, I think it's the first semester we have to take a cornerstone class, which kind of introduces you into the area and what to expect and whatnot, which is great. And then we have 2 capstone classes which are all in your second semester. So you take a 1-credit capstone class fall of your second year. And then spring of your second year, so what I'm in now, we have a 3-credit capstone class, and that's when you pump out the product. So yeah, definitely take it, your second in the fall of the second year. So the way to do it.
So speaking from the SPS side of it, that you are not allowed to do your capstone until your second year, and this is because the first year you're doing your a full year of different cornerstones. So the first semester is always going to be your international security course, and then the second semester is going to be the security policy analysis course. And before they act as jumping points actually can take that stuff into your capstone.
And it's the same for the International Affairs program. I don't think you could actually take capstone courses in your first year, and I definitely would recommend that. The second year, we start off with credit class in the fall, and then now in the spring, we're in our final section where our report's written, and that's another 2 credits.
Yeah, and on top of that, you don't really want to rush into your capstone right away, because a big part of it, at least, I've seen, is that you need to have a really solid team. So in order to build that solid team that you trust to get you through it the whole year, you definitely need to make those relationships and also just be clear on what it is that you want to study for a whole year. Because if you're not, you're going to be pretty miserable stuck a whole year trying to figure out this thing with people that you don't like. So I think that's definitely very important to, not saying they're bad people, it's just they may be in different aisles of what they want to do. So be very thoughtful about that.
Adding on to what you're saying, I was talking about again, you're going to be working with these people for a whole year, and it's going to be you're either going to love each other at the end or you're going to want to kill each other at the end. My group has been kind of the mix of both from time to time, but part of it is you want to be more concerned about the people that you work with rather than worried about your capstone topic or even trying to find a client, because those are tiny drops in the ocean of capstone, and you're going to be more concerned about working with the people that you're going to be working with.
Great. Thank you all so much. I'm sure there will probably be more questions about capstone a little bit later. But to Katie, your question about is there a place online where we can see a list of student organizations at the Elliott School? I did put a link in the chat feature. I know that there's a lot of questions in there, but if you see my link, I did put a link to our website where we have all of our Elliott School student organizations. So I'm going to move on to the next question, which is, would you say that the faculty are open and willing to help with career development? And just also to kind of tack on to that question too, just in terms of faculty and relationship development, how have you seen in terms of your own time at the Elliott School that develop?
I'll jump in on that. Last semester, I think the faculty is extremely accessible. Last spring, I worked overseas at U.S. Embassy Seoul in the external affairs section of the embassy. And the great thing about our school is that we have a lot of ambassadors on staff as resources. So I have never worked in an embassy before. This is my first time doing it. And I literally just cold emailed Ambassador Ghanim, Ambassador Mula Mula, just to gain from their perspective, what would an entry-level officer going into an embassy, what would they like to see from that person? What strategies should they employ and while they're doing this job? And just expectations and just any kind of career advice that we can get. So I would say that from my experience, people are definitely here to help, as I've mentioned before, but you just have to seek it out and reach out. People are very willing and been responsive to emails. So definitely don't be afraid to reach out to your professors, even if you're not in class.
I'd like to add to that. I think it's an important thing to note in that a lot of these professors that work here at the Elliott School, they have other jobs as well. So they're either fellows or scholars at other think tanks, or they have government experience or whatnot, or like Alvin was saying, like Ghanim and all that, they're former ambassadors. And so it's when you get these professors, I would definitely, first of all, Google them and see where they work at and see whether they're involved with other institutions. And that's a great way to see, okay, get an idea whether they are someone that, would know what you want to do and whatnot. And then, a lot of these people, if they are working for other institutions, they need research assistants a lot of the time because they're doing independent projects or whatnot. So you can always reach out to them and see if you can help them with things, and then that can get you in the door with other people, and go down the line. Everyone in my experience has been very, very helpful, and they have been helping me figure out what position exactly to apply for now that I'm coming out of my master's degree, and what they feel like I would be the best suit for.
So, speaking for kind of adding on to everything that they talked about, again, a lot of these professors have actual jobs outside of the Elliott School. I mainly work with a lot of people that work in the defense sector, so a lot of people that work at the Pentagon or other places throughout the Washington, D.C. metro area. They're very approachable and they're very insightful. In fact, one of my professors, Dr. Reyes Sears, who taught the cyber policy course, kind of helped me orient myself towards the cybersecurity track that I'm now pursuing through Booz Allen, and that's actually one of those things that I've been very, very grateful for her doing, because I've been able to learn a lot as I've gone along.
Great, thank you all. So to the next question, what are some government jobs in DC which do not require a citizenship? I posted a link to that as well. I don't know if any of our panelists would like to speak on that, but I did post a link to from USA Jobs for government jobs in DC that do not require a citizenship. So I'm going to take that as a probably no. So if you do have any questions or would like to be connected with an international student who may also be working in a government-related position, we can also try to find a student to put you in contact with as well. So Matthew, this next question is directed to you, and you kind of already covered this a little bit, but did your studies in security policy studies and the program's resources help you secure your job at Booz Allen?
I would say, yeah, actually. There's been a lot of stuff from the Elliott School that has transferred over with me to get my job at Booz Allen, where I've been able to talk about the aspects of cybersecurity in certain fields, and kind of also take some of the other things I never would have imagined that would help me along. The static course, professional development course helped me out a lot. The negotiations classes helped me out a lot, because it allowed me to negotiate with my boss on making sure I'm getting paid well and actually doing what I need to do to live comfortably in DC, because that's going to be one thing they're going to run into. It kind of depends on how you want to make it and how you want to try and set yourself up for success. I can only speak from a little fraction of what got me to working and securing my job at Booz Allen, but I can imagine that anyone here on the panel can actually attest that the skills that they got helped them secure the jobs that they had here from attending Elliott.
Thank you, Matthew. Our next question is, have any of you studied abroad? And if so, how was your experience and how did you navigate funding study abroad?
I can start off with that. So it depends on, I'll start off, it depends on really with your program. Depending on the program, you might need to work on language skills. Or if you don't have language skills, or I mean, if you don't have that requirement, then that's great for you. But but for some of us, we had to go and do that. So in order to do that, I studied abroad in Jordan this past summer. And that was under the Foreign Language and Area Studies Fellowship, FLAS Fellowship. And I was at a program there, intensive program for the whole summer, and it was great. So, and FLAS Fellowship covered my entire stay there. So it is very accessible. So it was great experience.
As I mentioned earlier, that I worked in Seoul. That was funded with the Freeman Foundation through GW. So there are definitely resources available to you if you're studying in a specific region of the world. I didn't go to Seoul for language training. That was specifically a requirement that I had to complete for the Wrangel Fellowship with the State Department. but GW was also just very helpful in guiding me throughout the process, connecting me with students who have lived in Seoul or are living in Seoul, making sure that I have a support network of students overseas that I could reach out to, because this was my first time in Asia, first time in a country that I didn't study Korea, I didn't know much about Korea, and I kind of just ended up there by the department sending me, because I thought they would send me since I have work experience. So our school is just very resourceful in connecting us with the support that we need financially, and with our alumni network.
Great, thank you. Our next question is one that I really like. What is one thing that makes the Elliott School stand out to you? And what's one thing you'd like to change?
All right, I think I'll probably take a shot at this. What stood out most about GW is that they're very practical in how they actually teach everything and how they want to help you set up your career. There's a funny saying here in DC that Georgetown is for the academics, GW's for the real people that want jobs, and everyone else just goes to American. But in all honesty, it's the fact that it was a fantastic, I mean, Elliott has taught me a lot, and the fact that I'm in an area where I'm able to see the State Department from the building itself, and just being able to interact with a bunch of professionals in real-time situations is probably the greatest part about being at Elliott.
I also want to just say as well, the proximity. I think Matthew brings up a great point, the proximity to everything else. And so this is why I think GW in general and the Elliott School, the positioning of the Elliott School is fantastic, in that if you compare it to Georgetown or American or others, our sister schools of some sort, it only took me a mile to get from my job at the Atlantic Council or the Middle East Policy Council at DuPont to get to the Elliott School every day. It took me about 20 minutes to walk there, 20, 25 minutes. So that's a big deal, because accessibility is important to me, to be able to get around, and you just pop off the metro and you're able to go to class, or you're able to go to your job and then walk or take the metro back to the Elliott School for class in the evening. So I think that's a big seller for me. And then of course it's only a few blocks from the National Mall. So if you're a runner or, want to go and do stuff, that's great too. So.
I guess I could say something that's unique about the Elliott School. My Chinese politics professor last semester got his PhD with other esteemed colleagues that I would like to work under. And so I think I hit on this a little bit earlier, and some other people have as well, but you just have access to the people you really want to work with because they're friends or colleagues of your professors.
I guess I would also the whole capstone. Getting a client, at least for us, was kind of like a little bit easier because we carried the George Washington University name with it. And so there were a lot of open doors, and people really did held us not just otherwise. So I itself just a lot of doors, both while you're in school and when you're out of school. And not only that, but they continue to offer resources once you leave school, such as the career services. They are definitely open to alumni, once you leave. And, I have experience from that from both being undergrad and grad. So they must be doing something right if I came back, despite the high tuition.
Great, thank you all so much. So our next question, I answered in the chat in terms of what percentage of Elliott School classes are in the evening, but I thought I'd open it up to the panel as well, just in case if maybe anybody took some non-Elliott School classes that may not have been in the evening, or maybe some classes like the professional development skills courses that are sometimes offered a little bit differently. So I just wanted to open it up to the panel about classes at the Elliott School in terms of evening or day?
I guess I'll jump in. So one of my elective choices was to take an environmental sciences class, and it was 3:30 in the afternoon. So if you are taking classes outside of Elliott School, they may be in the afternoon.
Yeah, so I took at least one professional development or professional skills course that took place on the weekend, but it was only 2 Saturdays over the semester, so I only had to give up 2 Saturdays from like 9 to 4, 8 to 4 or something, and then write like a couple page paper by the end of the semester. So that was kind of a nice way to just use up a weekend and also get an extra credit for that.
Just say, in my experience now, this semester I'm taking a course that's split up into 2 days actually, and it's from 11:15 to 12:30, which is really odd. But there are courses like that, and there are some courses that are offered to both grad students, PhD students sometimes, and to undergrad students. And this course is one of those. So it just depends. So that accommodates right towards more undergrad students to be earlier in the day versus later at night. And then if you're taking language courses, usually those are offered as well to both masters and whatnot, and also to undergraduate students. So those will be during the day as well. They're usually not that many, unless they're a skills course or professional development course, then they'll be usually 5 p.m. onwards.
Great. So in terms of your individual programs, can you speak a little bit more on the flexibility within them? Were you able to focus more on what you're interested in / classes within your concentration once you finish your core curriculum?
I guess I'll go again. Asian studies is super flexible. You can basically do anything in any order as long as you get the cores, the themes, professionals. I recommend doing the cores and the theme classes first. One, because the cores are tough and you have to do them. But also, two, the theme is probably going to be the most fun class you take. So take it as soon as you can, especially if you're doing core at the same time. So you have one class that's really hard and one class you really love.
Kind of adding off of what Eli said, from the security policy program, it's fairly flexible. Granted, because you have the two cornerstone classes your first year at the Elliott School, it makes it a little bit harder to try and fit in all the classes that you want to take. But you're really flexible on what you're able to take from your core classes to the electives that you want to take. It's really great time. You end up learning a lot. Plus, it's also really fun to listen to some of your professors come in and just go on tangents about their job and just how frustrating it can be. Then start off with the, all right, so we're going to talk about special forces in the Middle East today.
Yeah, and I guess I'll go next. So yeah, there's a lot of flexibility in the loss program. I would say that honestly, one of the main drivers or reasons I focus so much on migration, specifically, I started looking at child migration was because I took care for children in emergency situations class, which was technically an elective for me, but it really did shape the way that I start focusing on what I want to be and do later on and what other work I want to do on the side. But even if you do, for example, for mine which is a very regional focused one, you can still do other things. So even though I am in the Latin America studies program, my big main focus is on security and migration. So I've taken a lot of classes that are in the security aspects. So like transnational security is something I've taken. So it would be really good to explore the different even subsections of the program that you're coming into, because maybe there's something that crosses over that you're interested in, and just go for it, because you never know when that'll be actually the main topic that you're like, excuse my language, great, that's where I want to go. So yeah, feel free to explore, take it as an elective, and you never know, maybe that's what you want to do.
Yeah, and with the international program, the flexibility is pretty much the same. My concentration is security studies policy. And for example, right now I'm able to take a cybersecurity class, and I took that course largely because when I was interacting with other diplomats overseas, this was a big section of the work that a few diplomats are working on. I didn't know anything about cyber policy or cybersecurity. I knew that it was important, but I had no idea what malware or phishing campaigns were. And so I'm in this class currently right now, and I think it's one of the best decisions I've ever made because this is an emerging field where people really have to, in a general sense, understand what is actually going on.
So our next question is if you were working full-time prior to beginning your studies at the Elliott School, would you say that your experience at Elliott has advanced you in your career?
I guess I can speak on this. I'm probably 10 years older than the rest of my cohort. I was in the military first, and I worked in journalism doing translation when I lived in China. And so now I'm looking to focus more on policy. And so that just simply wasn't an option for me before because I had no experience in that field. And now I'm an intern at the Wilson Center. So that is like, it's opening the door for me in a way that couldn't have happened before. I wouldn't have been able to have secured the job at Wilson Center had I not gone to Elliott, and had I not, and then I would be stuck, in a previous career. So I was, I'm older, I'm doing a career shift. So that's just my experience.
Great. Well, our next question too is about sharing contact information. So I will reach out to each one of you to see if you would be amenable to providing your contact information if we're not able to answer all of the questions today. But I did want to move on to our next question. And I know that we get a lot of questions about this in terms of financing the degree. So could I have a few of y'all talk a little bit more about how or advice to figure out how to finance the Elliott School degree?
No debt program. It's great. And you get, a lot of the times you get free supplies from actual school because you work in an office. So, and you work on campus. So usually you're around teachers anyways, and they're like, hey, let's grab coffee and talk about your paper. It's a great, very convenient thing. And there's always new jobs, and you can jump from job to job. So definitely please take advantage of that. Literally so happy no debt from a master's program.
Very grateful that I'm part of a fellowship program that finances my degree. But I will say that if you can find fellowship opportunities like that, you should always apply. I will also plug that I've noticed that the Elliott School has started a scholarship program or a fellowship program that funds up to $10,000 of expenses outside of your degree. So there are resources that are available to assist with the costs. Which is a real issue. So just try to do a wide search of opportunities that will fund. If it's a partial funding, anything counts, and just look around school or ask around for opportunities that are there.
So speaking from my experience, I mean, for some of us, we're gonna have to take a little bit of a hit and get some debt while we're at the Elliott School. But the nice thing is that you will also have companies and other places here in DC that will be more than happy to help you pay a little bit to go to school. That's been the nice thing about being at Booz Allen is that they give me a yearly education stipend that I'm able to put towards my education for a semester or for a full year. Granted, it's a small sum compared to what the Elliott School is as a whole, but it really does help in the long run. And it just means that it takes the financial burden a little bit off of your shoulders.
All right, well, thank you. So we are about 5 minutes away from 7 p.m. So I did want to just pose one last question that I'll have each one of our panelists answer. And that is, what do you wish you knew about the Elliott School when you first started the program?
I guess I'll start. When I first got into the program, I had a very difficult transition. Um, but like I think I want to take I actually don't want to answer this question the way it's posed because I feel like there are plenty of things I wish I had known, but in the end none of those problems actually ended up mattering, right? So I'm still been successful even though there's been so many several instances where I was like this isn't the way I want it to be. You just keep your head down, you keep going forward, and it ends up being okay. So I would say that while I had obstacles, I'm still very grateful and very happy the way everything's worked out so far.
Yeah, I guess I wish I would have known that it wasn't as like life or death situation that I was going into. Before coming here, I thought I'm not going to have a job that can support me living here and paying for school and all of that. But really, I found that once I was in the program, it was much easier than I expected to kind of make connections and pursue internship and job opportunities. So that's one thing I wish I would have known because I stressed about that before coming here.
I guess for me, so I come from a very, and I'm open to speak about it, but I come from a very like low income community. And so when I came to Elliott, I was kind of scared that I personally was not going to live up to how smart everybody else was because everybody's super knowledgeable. But the thing I would tell people is that, you are coming to grad school, you are going to be, I think, surprise yourself and everyone else around you. So, don't lose confidence in yourself when you're there and you're competing with a lot of these kids. And also to just like, make it's going to be a lot easier, I feel, at least it was for me, to adapt to make friends in a social network in grad school, just because there are people that actually care about the subject you care about more deeply. So it's easier to create conversations and bond over those kind of things. So if you're scared and more of that kind of socializing or even economic or stuff like that, like just know that you can do it. And it may seem like a big monolith over here, but like Elliott's just made of a lot of people that just want to learn and talk about the same things you do, and you have every right to be there.
So, speaking from my experience, there was saying that Patrick Murphy in the GSS office said that when you're looking to the people to your left and to right, you don't you're going to see your competition on trying to get the jobs you want. Here at the LA school, it's been more than just thinking them as competitions, but as colleagues, as friends, as the uh, people that you can go and cry on their shoulders in the Gelman library quietly, so you're not disturbing anyone, and they're going to sit there and say, "I understand your pain." Um, Everyone here is in the same boat. Everyone is wanting to help each other get to where they want. Don't treat it as a I am fighting for my survival here, and everyone else here is out to out to keep me from getting what I want. Everyone's here to support each other, and everyone's all in the same boat. So don't worry about it.
I agree with Matt. Sorry. I agree with Matt in that, I think before I came up here, before I came to DC in general, I mean, there's this stereotype of DC and that it's very cutthroat. I mean, it is. And depending on where you're at, it very much is. I was on the Hill before this, and that's the epicenter of cutthroatness in DC. But it's great to know before going into the Elliott School and then master stuff in general, is in that it's going to be very difficult. It's a challenge, right? You're going to be learning new things. You're going to be learning how to live in DC, how to get jobs here in DC. But also, like Matt was saying, it's important to know that yes, these people kind of are your competition, but they are also can become some of your best support system. And to take advantage of that, it's like this school is relatively it's a big school, but it's also kind of close knit in the same way. I mean, and the MES, we joke a lot in that a lot of people consider us, like a cult because we're so small and we're so close knit. But at the same time, we accept people and bring people in at the same time. That you have different classes, but that are in different sort of sectors. So I think just to have that mindset and that yes, you should have this mindset that you need to compete in general, you need to stand out, but you also need to accept that these people are going to be, really instrumental in how you move forward in life. So
I just want to jump in and just, I think it's very important to stress that the only competition that you have is with yourself. I think it's just trying to make sure you understand that and work on developing yourself, developing your skills, looking at your classmates as people that you can work with and learn with. As mentioned before, everyone is going through the same thing. It's just important to just understand like what's important to you, and focusing on not trying to outdo the person next to you, but really just making sure that you understand what's going on in front of you. And then I'll just end just again by just remembering just to prioritize your mental health, like making sure you take the time to jump and just unplug. There are moments where I will push something off just because I need to develop those kind of things that you can tap into when you really get overwhelmed or you're just strained. I also DJ, so I do it mainly as a hobby now. So there are moments where I'll just step away from work, from schoolwork, and just go and for an hour and just mix. And you just have to make sure that you are intentional about building out those periods and protecting your mental health throughout this entire process.
All right. Well, it is now a little bit after 7 p.m. and the end of this online current student panel. So I want to thank so much to Alvin, Christiana, Elijah, Gwen, Matthew, and Yesenia for being on our panel this evening and providing your insights and advice into all things Elliott School. And thank you all, two of our admitted students who tuned in this evening. Once again, we have recorded this session and we will be sending out the links to rewatch next week. So please let us know if you'd like them sooner. However, and we can provide them to you. And if we were not able to address any one of your questions or you think of some questions later, please email us at esiagrad@gwu.edu. And the members of the graduate admissions team and myself can help address your questions and or put you in touch with one of our current student panelists. So please see the chat box for our contact information. Once again, thank you all so much for tuning in tonight and providing your information. This was a really good overview of what it was like being an Elliott School student.